Dan, I hear you have something lined up for us.
Yeah, a little bit of a track that's forthcoming on my EP. It should be out soon. The EP is called Illiterate. This song's called Straya, and it's I think it's quite poignant for the times that we're currently in. So I'll just start it. I'm just going to do it a cappella. Can someone tell me what it means to be Australian? Because I, for one, I feel like I am failing. All I see is greed and racism prevailing. The sickness grows from the hate that we're inhaling. Some of the population are fit like Adonis, but most Australians are thick and abhorrent. Our leaders slap backs with the fat caps up in towers, misspending our public funds and abusing their powers. We have a misplaced sense of freedom, free to succeed but free from reason. We shun the poor and those who protest. We love the law because it knows best. Rates of suicide are so high, so many alive feel dead inside, and Darth Murdoch serves another lie. It's no wonder kids smoke all that ice to get high. Now some philosophize through the bong smoke. Whinge about the system, but you don't vote. Lazy spirituals, Rastafari white. Lack of engagement helping the rise of the far right. Our politicians serve corporate interests, treat our Indigenous worse than prisoners. They cut the land up for metals and energy, white out this nation's black memory. There's a little bit of a hook and there's a bit of a scratchy bit from DJ Liquid, but yeah, that's generally the crux of the verses. So, yeah.
That's pretty spectacular, man.
Thank you.
Wow.
Looking forward to that. It's a beat by TK Bass Dread. Gentleman plays bass up in Byron Bay with the 420 sound guys. You know those guys up there?
I haven't, but you're going to have to put me onto it.
Yeah, they're very, very great dub reggae collective up there, Byron.
Mate, that's right down my definitely.
They've got something. They've got. I think it's I think it might even be worldwide. They've got the biggest Monday reggae night in the world or something really weird. And it's the beach of the beach hotel in Byron, and it just packs out on a Monday night.
Oh, you know what? I think I've actually been to one of their events.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I've only been to Byron once. I think it was maybe last year, and we were there for 5 days, and. Obviously, my missus was a bit tired from having a child and everything, but we I was like, babe, like that's we had a nice dinner and then some drinks and we went to I think it was the Byron. It's a pretty big hotel, isn't it?
It's huge
outdoor area.
Yep.
Mate, I was in heaven.
Yep.
I'm like reggae is one of those genres where the moment it starts playing, I'm like, yep, I'm there. I'm in. Let's do it.
My brother said it's the happiest type of music. There's no way it can be unhappy. It's just something about the way those chords hit.
Yeah, the skanks and
So, just smiling music. If it's a political song about oppression or about, it's still just got this always happy vibe to it.
Even when like say people like Albarosi, right? I'm sure you know Albaros. Like he's got this, idly long dong, really definitely. Gruffy sort of.
Yep.
But it's still, the music always has a positive message.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's something that sort of symbolizes dub and reggae in a sense.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. So obviously today we have you, Dan, aka Dyzlexic, in the house. Make some noise.
Such a wonderful audience.
Yeah, this is shooting live, everyone. Live and direct. All right, let's turn that off just in case I hit the wrong button.
Get the samples out.
Yeah, like the old cricket. Should we do it? Should we just
do it? Do it.
All right, shut up, crickets. I hate bugs. So you're obviously someone who is, obviously a lyricist. Would you call yourself a rapper or a freestyler?
I tend to MC. MC is the word I use because the thing I like the most about what I do is the crowd interaction. That's my favourite thing. Call and response, those sorts of things. Make some noise, and that's what I prefer. So that's more of a master of ceremonies thing, I think. I still love rapping. I still love all the other parts of it, but I think the thing that I enjoy the most is the
hype.
Yeah, it's the hype and the crowd control, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of like a sort of you don't really rap to hip hop. You're really into the DMB genres, I guess.
I do rap to hip hop. But drum and bass has always had this special. I've always had this really special relationship with it, and so the best way I think with hip hop, it's very limited as when you stop and start. Whereas drum and bass, you can stop and start anywhere. It's very critical that you start and stop in specific places, but you're not locked into such a rigid formula.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do a 16 or 24, whereas hip hop, it's always a bit more rehearsed. I mean, the freestyle and spontaneous stuff is a little bit different, but if you're doing a set of hip hop, your raps are pretty much preordained or predetermined where they're going to go. Whereas drum and bass, it's just go nuts.
Yeah. I think there's more of a hypnotic sort of element to drum and bass, like, like all the other sort of electronic dance music genres. Hip hop, I guess, is a bit more like you got specific chord structures. You want to have the hook and that.
Yeah, that's it.
And, obviously on that note, you have some pretty exciting releases. You've had Frostbite.
Yeah, that was pretty good little one with Mr. Arby.
Yeah. And what label was that on?
It was on Lifestyle. Yeah.
And you just recently, is it today?
Yeah, last night, yeah. So I'm not sure when this is airing, but from the day we're recording, it was last night. It was my premiere of my first ever music film clip, which was Viper. It was done with UTS from South Australia, and that came out on In Deep, which is a label over in Austria.
Yeah.
That was really exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, was it something that they kind of said to you, hey, do you want to do a music video clip?
No, I said to Paddy, who's the UTS, is the producer, I said, look, I want to do a film clip out of this. I think it's got legs to do a film clip on.
Yeah.
And then he went sort of go nuts, and then I just ran with it. And it was more of an exercise in me of like, because knowing that my EP was coming up and was in the process, I was like, okay, can I do a film clip? And I sat down with a few of my friends from Snake Pit, big up the Snake Pit fam, and said, look, this is what I want to do. This is my plan. And not a single person went, oh, I think that's a bit ambitious, or, oh, I don't know if we can pull that off. They were all like, let's go. When do we start? When do we do it?
Yeah.
So, it was to the point where I'd planned it. My partner and I went traveling. We had a set date for when we were going traveling, and I decided to do it 3 weeks beforehand. So I just went, and I was swimming once, and I was thinking about it, and I thought to myself, not a lot of time to organise. And I literally said to myself, I said, if anyone can pull this off, it's going to be you. So let's just get there. And then every morning I would sit down, I'd make a to-do list as well as doing breakfast, knock off my to-do list, and then that was it. The next day I'd have another one, and just clicked over until everything was taken care of. The makeup, the background dancers, the location, everything just fell into place.
Yeah. And obviously a mutual friend of ours, James.
James and Dana, yeah.
James and Dana. Amazing. From Jurassic Melbourne. Yep. They obviously did a lot of Kudos's music video clips. Yep. Who's obviously if you're watching this will be the episode after Kudos.
After Big James, yep. The Kudos are later. We've known each other for 9 years.
9 years.
We've known each other for a while. His housemate, the girl who designed his first EP was my ex-partner's housemate.
Wow.
And my ex-partner said, I don't know, have you heard this guy Kudos? And I was like, no, I'm from Melbourne. Like, how would I hear of a rapper from Noosa sort of thing? Like,
yeah.
She's like, check this out. And I was like, whoa. Man's got skill, damn. Yeah. And then I met him at a house party in Noosa and became mates ever since. Like
an instant
sort of. Instant, yeah. Like we already kind of knew each other because we'd seen each other's music and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Man, it's kind of like why you're also here, like as a guest choice to be on sort of number three.
Yep.
Is I feel like there's this thread that connects all of you, obviously Shem's going to be on the horizon. I think I've mentioned it. It's actually funny with Shem, he messaged me going, oh man, I really, really, really enjoyed that. And, episode 1 with us there. I'm like, have you seen episode 0? Because I kind of actually mentioned the fact that I want to get Twisted Audio guys.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a thread, and there's this like, is it 3 degrees of separation? Is that what they call it? 3 degrees?
That's what it is.
Yeah. Which is kind of exciting because for me that sort of highlights the interconnectedness of the scene.
Yep, definitely.
And there's so much in what you already said that I want to cover today. cover Snake Pit Collectives, a few things to talk about, music
Definitely.
video clips. But while we're on that sort of note of the music video clip, what was the actual process? Obviously, you said you had your to-do lists, but in terms of having James involved, did he do a lot of the production scouting?
So what happened was I actually had someone else booked in to do it. It was a friend through a guy I had met through Ruckman, one of Kudos's collaborators. And I was at one of his film clips, and the guy who was filming that, I said, okay, this is great. And then unfortunately, last minute, literally Friday, the clip was all booked for Saturday. We were meeting up at the house that was booked, and he said, look, I can't do it. I'm going to find someone else to do it to help you. So I was like, okay, sweet. My partner will confirm this. I've never been so silent in my entire life. I spent 3 or 4 hours just pacing around the house, just going. She said, what's up? And I said, I've got my background dancer, I've got my fire twirler, I've got my extras, I've got the location, I've got the lights, I've got the scene set up, the only thing I don't have is someone to film the video clip. So James and I had already been talking about 10 of Commandments, and I said...
just shot at Esoteric
to
Festival.
be shot at Esoteric, yeah. So that was a big plan, and I said, I rang him, and I was sitting like car park at my work, and I said, bro, this has happened. Any chance you can help? And he was already booked for another gig, and he said, no, I can't, but Dana is very keen to do it. And I said, great. Oh, she's never done one before. And I said, even better, neither have I. Like,
yes.
Let's go for it. Like,
I love it.
He said, I'll set her all up. I'll get it, and I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. None of the guys who are involved in helping know what we're doing. We all know what we're doing, but we don't know what we're doing. If that makes sort of sense. Like my lighting guy, Matty, he knows his lighting, but he'd never done a film clip. So he'd never had any idea of what colours or schemes. And then while James was setting Dana up and getting everything sort of planned out, and we were getting our makeup done and these sorts of things, she goes, oh, my dad's coming. Have you met Dana's dad?
Yes, I have.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
And I thought, oh, that's great. Your dad's coming to help you in your first clip. And James was like, no, he's a cinematographer too. Like,
yeah, he is.
Yeah, apparently he's brilliant. Like I wasn't aware of any of his work. And so then I had this awesome thing that I was watching from being the talent on the camera, watching her and him connect on this like father-daughter, and it was awesome. And he's just running, doing the little side things and holding the lights, and it was all her show.
Yeah.
And a few times he'd ask, one time he wanted the lights to orange, and he goes, oh, can I have this light orange? And I'm sitting there thinking, and the bang, light goes orange, and I'm like,
sweet.
Go team.
Like yes, Matty.
Yeah, totally, yeah. One of my friends who owned the house, he was on the smoke machine, and he was just like killing it on the side, like on-off smoke machine, like bang. He's like, the great smoke machine, like just giving us all these compliments. And at the end of the shoot, he said, so, how you guys must have been doing this for a while. And I'm like, no, dude, it's our first one. He's like, and he was quite impressed with how professional we were. Yeah. Even that was the first one. It was just kept on point. Everyone that was involved was just really, really present and really helpful, and made me. I worried because my partner was there and a few of her girlfriends came, and all they did was hang out in the green room and just like get drunk, which is what was the idea. Yeah, because they were just gonna be extras. And she's like, I don't even want to be in the film clip. I just want to be hanging out here and be a part of. The experience. And a lot of time she spent like behind Dana watching the thing, and she's like, I didn't want to be on front of the camera. I wanted to be behind watching you level up. And I said, a few times I felt like I was snappy. She's like, no, you're just being like professional. Direct. You're just being direct. Yeah. And I was like, oh, great, because and at the end of the night, I bought everyone pizza and and we all just sat there, and everyone's like, high fiving me and just talking about what a great experience it was. And another thing that was interesting was there's a scene where I'm sitting in this stairway, and the next scene, I've got to be outside. So we shot it sort of backwards with the fire scene. So we had to build a fire. We had to do all this sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there on the stairs at one point, rapping to the camera and thinking, oh, we've got to start a fire. So it's going to take forever. It's getting late. And I turn to my mates and I go, we've got to get that fire. And he just laughed and goes, go and check it out. And I've gone out there, and they've built the fire in the drum. They've worked out with the fire twirler where he needs to stand. James and Dan are already working out. So all I had to do was literally stand in there and rap. And I was like, I was almost got a bit teary. I was like, oh my God, you guys have helped me, with so much. And it was it really was a team effort. Like I genuinely would not have been able to do it without all my amazing friends. Like
Yeah. And that's mostly you had the Snake Pit logo.
Yeah,
on.
that's what sort of my joke with because I helped build Snake Pit, and like I like to call myself a shit chippy. And so Cam Alta Kilter, who's like our sort of the main Snake Pit kind of organizer, every now and then I say my role in Snake Pit's the brand ambassador. Like I'm just trying to put the Snake Pit. If there's any photos, I just try and put Snake Pit out there as much as possible. So yeah, the whole idea was I said to everyone, wear a black hoodie because I just wanted black hoodies in the background. If you've got a Snake Pit one, wear that. And then me and Nelly, the snake charmer, we're both in Snake Pit hoodies. There's a few scenes where there's Snake Pit, and Cam and his partner were overseas traveling in South America, and I'm just sending him snippets of it. He's just like with this big shit-eating grin, like that sort of thing. So
represent.
Yeah. That was the idea. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I just want to for anyone who's watching and has never met Dan or Dyzlexic or has ever experienced, is it Snake Pit Collective or is it just Snake Pit?
No, just Snake Pit Sound.
Just Snake Pit Sound.
There's a Snake Pit Records and there's a Snake Pit as well. So there's Snake Pit Records is over in the UK, I believe, and Snake Pit is a stage in a hard trance festival in Holland. We're Snake Pit Sound. That's the whole...
Yeah. No relation, obviously.
No relation, no, we're our own thing.
And for anyone, obviously, that doesn't know, what is the sort of style of music, just so people know?
Bass music, I guess, yeah. Sort of broken beat. We do probably, I'd like to think that drum and bass is our main shtick, but I'm a bit biased. We do a lot of glitch hop as well, a lot of bass, a lot of dubstep.
Yeah.
And then there's a little bit of sort of funky tech house and a little other things. But what our main sort of thing is, we run a stage at Esoteric, and we're the only... From what I can see in my experience in the sort of doof community, in the doof scene, is we're the only really bass music driven stage.
Yeah.
There's always a bit of here, there, and sort of everywhere, but we're the only stage. It's like, I think from Saturday lunchtime to Sunday night, there's nothing but broken beats. There's no.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's Esoteric was my first festival this year. First time at Esoteric, and. Myself, I've obviously used to run a stage at a festival and do a lot of the programming, and a lot of bass music is very underrepresented in bush doofs.
I call it very token.
Yeah,
you'll get an international maybe, and then you'll get some dude at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
it's not, and that's I dig. It's probably the least popular.
So they think.
Also, they think. I don't know. I'm, like I said, I'm very biased. Like I really like both kinds of music, and drum and bass. Like, but I do find that, especially at the bigger parties. I find the bigger parties, especially like Rainbow 7, for example, was hilarious. At from a couple of years ago, it was Ed Solo was playing. I think he might have been the only sort of big name drum and bass act. And I looked around the crowd and it was just all Melbourne D&B heads, like just in full doof mode. And I was like, here we go. We're going to show you psytrance hippies how to rip a stage. Like, because we've got 1 hour. You know what I mean? You've got, those genres have a long time to sort of progress. We've got 1 hour to come in and smash it. So it's a little bit different. But yes, that's what I love most about Esoteric, is that it's,
encompassing.
Yeah, it's encompassing, but you get to see a different styles of those types of music. Even on the Saturday night with drum and bass, it's like 9 to 10 hours of drum and bass, but they're very different styles. You've got the guys who are playing at 4 or 5 a.m. are playing some really dark, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Monkey, Tay and I will play that more clubby sort of stuff. Shem will play a little bit of the heavier stuff, which will be scratch up and stuff. So it's a much bigger, as opposed to, here's your hour of drum and bass, which is awesome.
That's amazing. There's a lot of crews involved in Snake Pit, obviously. Twisted Audio, is... it says it on your T-shirt, Established 210. That's Jeff. He just knocked off.
Sorry, Jeff.
It's all good.
Wake up, Jeff.
A lot of people hate him when they come into the studio.
I was going to ask about him.
The old sausage man.
Yep.
I had a studio partner in here called Sam. He has a Cybreaks project, or sort of in that realms. Nanosphere. I don't know if you've heard him.
It rings a bell.
He's got some remixes of Head Flux, and he's just done Desert Dwellers. Which I don't know if you know Desert.
Yeah, Desert Dwellers, yep.
So he's UK based, and he was living with us for a while, and he is a very funny individual with a very strange and quirky sense of humor.
Excellent.
He's got 8 llamas, and they're all called Jeff. An inside joke with us is we like, do you know Eddie Izzard?
Yeah.
Eddie Izzard has this skit about the Death Star canteen and Darth Vader trying to go into the Death Star to order penne arrabbiata, and he's like, I am Darth Vader, and the guy's like, who? Jeff Vader, is that, are you Jeff Vader? You head of catering or whatever it goes, and so I call that guy Jeff Vader.
Jeff Vader,
and
nice.
Every studio's got to have a totem or whatever. That's him.
That's him. Excellent.
I'm in love with him.
Yep. Excellent. He's got beautiful eyes.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of crews that are involved in Snakebit, and that sort of highlights, like you said, you're the brand ambassador, but behind the scenes there's a bunch of people making it all work. And
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that they all. So it's a really great dynamic, isn't it? People just stick to sort of what they're doing. There's like the whole group of girls that do the decor, and there's no infighting. This goes here. It's all just everyone's just. It's such a fun collective to be a part of. So I get the benefit of helping build it and then also performing it. So I've got this extra sort of. Sometimes I feel like this extra connection of the stage, because when we're building the stage, a few times I'll stop and look out and be like, oh, this is going to be my view. Like, I wonder if there's going to be people here, And then when it happens and you're on stage and you're like, oh, wow, there's people here. Like, look what we built. Like, this is so great.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very easy collective, because I've seen from afar a few different sort of collectives, and I can see how easy it is to the infighting, because especially when the amount of effort involved versus the financial reward is such a disparity. It's very easy for people to get upset and get short. And I totally understand that. 100%. But we've got very much a very clear sort of chain of command, which I think sort of helps, and everything sort of is bounced off sort of 2 or 3 individuals depending on what sort of role it is. And there's a big grand idea, and like one of the guys, the guy who does our laser cutting for our stage, he's based in the NZ, but he's just one of our crew. Like, so he just sends back the plans to his boss who used to work in Coburg or something. So we get it all cut up there, and there's all these great ideas that bounce around between friends. So it's really awesome.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's got like, you've got sort of, I don't want to say industrial design, or some sort of design and planning and sketching, and that's usually like carpentry, the good base to begin with.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and then there's a few of us in the crew who are. There's a couple of guys that are really good carpenters, so they come up with the brain, the nuts and bolts sort of idea, and then it's up to sort of a couple of guys like me who just do more of the installation sort of stuff of it. So it's really, really awesome. Like this year it was rained on the Wednesday night. Piercing. And Cam's like, well, we better put a roof on it. And we're like, all right, sweet. So the 4 of us put this roof up in the rain. Big shout out to Tane and Dougie.
Oh, those the homies, man.
Absolute weapons.
Yeah.
But like at one point we had Cam and I were on ladders on the outside. I mean, we're so wet. Like I was thinking water. That's how wet I was. Like the socks, everything was just drenched. And I'm up on one ladder, hanging off this like tree, one leg on a tree, one leg on a ladder with my gun, putting a screw in. Cam's on the other side, and just as a precarious position. Tane's got a giant plank of wood holding up the panel for the roof, and Dougie's running around below, getting fixings, getting bolts, making sure ladders aren't going to fall in the rain. It was just this incredible experience. And then we finished it. We're all standing under that while the rains, and we're just standing there going, oh, wow, we built a roof. And then it didn't rain at all. But what it did do was allow the paint team to create an extra layer for the cave. And we were standing there at one point, and Cam and I was discussing the roof in the middle of the party. Cam's like, definitely need the roof. Like, it's really added an extra layer too. So that was pretty cool. That was really fun to be excited to be a part of.
It's funny, man. Behind every dove festival, Ane and Dougie are literally there, like
in some point.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like you're automatically around good people if those two they're friends with those dudes. Like it's like okay, sweet. Like your entire personnel and your whole backstory has been verified by the fact that you're mates with these two guys.
Yeah. Mate, I hats off to them. They're the unsung heroes.
100%.
You know,
100%. Dougie was one of the first people when he did sub bass. I don't know. Were you around Melbourne scene when sub bass was a thing?
I know it, I was here from 2008, so it was definitely.
Yeah, so that was sort of towards the end of its sort of reign, and that was about when I sort of joined up with those guys too, and they had this whole thing about we don't like MCs at Dwarf, so I was like sweet, and then all of a sudden they liked a couple of the guys liked me MCing. Shem was another one. He's like I want to MC, Dan to MC, and it was me and Hazy with the two MCs. And then Dougie just one day just gave me a T-shirt, a sub-bass T-shirt, and I was like, oh my God, like I'd had band T-shirt, but I'd never had like a crew. And I was like, oh my God, I've got a crew. Like, like I met my partner through that. Like I'm some of my best mates in the whole world, all through this whole idea of, right, what we're going to do is set up a stezza in the bush and play some tunes. Like, sweet, sounds good to me.
Oh, that's amazing, man. So, obviously, you are an MC and a carpenter, and it's I relate to you a lot, obviously, in that way because I'm obviously a carpenter and DJ.
Yep.
But do you ever kind of go? You just like, if you could, you just do the MCing for the rest of your life, or do you like that dynamic between the two of them?
I've had moments where I've felt like I'm on the cusp, perhaps, especially with my second band. It's a 10-piece, some really hot players. Like really, what genre was it? It was like dubby, reggae, hip hop, rocky. It was like a big mishmash of everything. All the players were VCA guys, like so they could just play anything. And
I don't know what VCA.
Sorry, VCA, Victorian College of the Arts. It's like the music school,
prestigious school.
Yeah, it's if someone's graduated from VCA, you really know that they know their stuff. Like it's extremely hard to even get into the course, let alone to finish it.
Yeah.
It's on St Kilda Road. I don't know if you know that sort of area next to the National Gallery.
Yeah.
So all the players with that were just, and there was two rappers and a singer, and it was really, I thought the project had legs. It was a sort of what I like to call a bit of a streetier, grungier version of the Cat Empire.
Oh, okay.
And we had this thing where I said we all work in threes. So there was 3 horn players, drums, bass, guitar, and the vocals. And as long as each 3 knew what the 3 of us were supposed to be doing, there was no way it could go wrong. And we kept that ethos. So even in the verses, the horns would just be holding one note or something like that, and then I cut my teeth in live music muso nights. So I got this really enjoyed this jazzy vibe of almost not being the conductor, but being the person who sort of moves the flow into certain directions. So I'd call one at the sax player, are you ready for a solo? And he'd be like, oh yeah, here we go, and he'd count and say right, and then rip a solo. Same with the drummer or the singer or anyone. And I think sometimes when you've got that bigger collective, it just needs that one person just to not arrogantly be saying, oh, I'm the boss, this is the way it goes, but like, what do we do there? And then instead of people arguing, it's like, yeah, cool, let's go there. Like, it's not, it's just a way to sort of direct the flow a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I thought with that band, I might have been able to have made it.
Yeah.
And we went on tour. I did 6 weeks up the East Coast. I was like, I don't know if I can do this as a thing. Like it's a very
grueling.
It's a very hard lifestyle. I absolutely take my hat off to the people I know that do it as a full-time gig. It's a lot, and it's being from Melbourne too is very, very spoiled. Like a lot of my friends, so I went to high school in Canberra. A lot of my friends say, why don't you come play a gig in Canberra? I'm like, if I want to play to 20 people, I'll play on a Tuesday night in Melbourne. Like, why would I go to all that effort to... and that's probably not the right attitude if you're trying to spread your sound, but it's sort of like, well, it's all this effort to set up a gig anyway. Why would I do it in a place that, I just have this thing again that sort of it makes me feel a little bit, it's just whenever you play a bad gig to a bad show, you just feel a bit more depressed about it. So it's a lot harder to crack that. So after that, and I was thought, I didn't know about that. And I was working in advertising at the time and thought, maybe. And then I sort of had a little bit of a mental breakdown, quit the band, moved up to Noosa with my ex-partner and sort of chilled out, didn't do, because I think I'd worked out in 2011. I left Melbourne in November 2011. I'd done 150 shows that year with my band of drum and bass. Like I was 3 or 4 nights a week I was playing.
Wow.
And that's the most of it. And I was burnt out. I just literally was. I was thinner than I've ever been. I was just a rake, just like bad habits, bad food, bad sleep, bad everything, Had a ball, but was just burnt out.
Yeah.
And then I came back to Melbourne 18 months later and had a much better attitude. And then I sort of went, I'm kind of happy with having another focus outside of music, I think. And that also too, it means that I get really stressed about finances quite easily. And so that way you're not relying on this creative endeavor to pay the bills. And again, hats off to people that can do it. I'm incredibly, I'm almost my fiercest attractor, and I'm my biggest critic. So I don't think I could actually physically do that. It's taken me 17 years to do a film clip, for God's sake. Like it's, so. Yeah, so I do genuinely like having that balance. And I'm actually lucky in the point now with my job that I'm only sort of doing 30, 35 hours a week. Got a lot of more time to sort of focus. So the job and art balance is much better at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I can also relate to that. And obviously, we had this similar conversation with Albino, which is, I always ask that question because for me, my dream is always like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to be like a different country every week. But then,
the reality of that's really hard.
Well, yeah. And the closest person I know who has been doing that for 10 years is Grouch. And
Yep. I was going to say Oscar meaning Opio, but
yeah. And well, yeah, he's just he's done it for so long, and I think I don't know if he that's how he operates.
That's
now.
right. Would he know any other way?
Would he know any other way? And that being said, man, he's still writing amazing music.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I put it down to outlier.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
He's an outlier.
Absolutely. And there are people like that in every single facet of life. Like there's just those people who have that extra ability to do
something. Yeah. And look, it is something that I want to sort of segue into a conversation we had at Esoteric when obviously, so me and Dan, we've actually met before, but Dan had a hard time putting the name to the face.
Yeah, because you'd had a haircut and your face was all trimmed, and I was standing there going, and we were chatting all weekend, like popping in and seeing each other, and I'm like sitting the whole time looking at your eyes going, I know this, what have you changed? And you're like, I've shaved my beard off. I'm like, that's what it is.
Yeah. And so the first time we actually met was, so I used to manage Grouch I used to be Grouch's manager, and I used to be his, I don't know if you could say personal event manager, but basically I run my business Beyond Surreal, and we used to put on parties, and Shem and Tay obviously put Twisted Audio. And so, there was just like, hey, let's put on a gig together. Let's bring in the forces, his name, our sort of promotion, and my, obviously just the aesthetic of the event and everything. And you were playing right after me with Jeswa.
Yeah. That was Jesse's first trip down to Melbourne.
Yeah. So I've never heard of you then, and I never heard of Jeswa. And I was blown away. Because I haven't gotten a chance to really dive into DMB culture, and so obviously part of DMB culture is having the MC, rip the mic a new one.
I like to think so.
But going back to this, lifestyle changes and like how health. So you, in our earlier conversation at ESO, told me that you were on the verge of becoming a triathlete.
Professional triathlete. Yeah. So this is I was thinking actually today when I was having a shower after doing my hour and a half ride through the Yuyangs this morning, how best to start this off. And I thought the best way to start it off is to give full credit to my mother. So when I was 5, I got diagnosed with ADHD. Anyone that knows me will be like I am the poster child for ADD. Or ADHD as it's known now. And she's a teacher. She's a primary school teacher. So she had already seen the effects of Ritalin and of those sort of mood-enhancing drugs. And she said no. And the doctor was like, she had this big argument with my pediatrician about the fact he's not going on drugs.
Yeah.
So he said, well, you need to do something to tire him out. So she just literally put me, I went to swimming training. So by like age 7 or 8, I was training 4 or 5 times a week already. That's 5 to 6 hours a week. And she said, that's what calmed me down. I'd be able to sleep. I didn't have behavioural issues that are sort of maintained. I had maybe a few concentration issues, but not nearly as bad. So that started. And then I just genuinely fell in love with the rhythm of endurance training. So I was doing like at age 8, I was doing 5K runs and 5K races. And I got a silver medal in the 1500 in the Northern Territory Little Athletics, I think at age 8 for under 9 for the year above and stuff. So, but it was just, and it was never, my parents never pushed me. One of my mum's favourite stories is to say when I was 13, I was in this swimming squad and she was talking with a couple of the mums and they said, oh, it was so hard to get Jimmy out of bed this morning. And how do you get Daniel out of bed? She looked at them and went, I go to bed hoping he doesn't wake me up. Who wants to be up at 5 a.m.? Why would you get your child up at 5 a.m.? What is wrong with you people? She's like, I go to bed hoping he doesn't wake me up. And I'd be like, no, I always set my alarm. And what I do is set my alarm across the other side of the room. So I had to get up.
Yeah, I do that too. Yeah. Enjoy sleep too much.
Yeah. So my biggest claim to fame, it actually got me my advertising job, was that I beat Ian Thorpe when we were 11 years old. So if anyone that doesn't know swimming, Ian Thorpe was an absolute phenom of swimming at the age of 16. And I remember him being like the size of him and I didn't think really anything of it. And it wasn't until he won his first medal at the World Champs, my mum said, you beat him. And I was like, what are you talking about, Tripper? And she's like, no. She showed me these results from 1994 New South Wales State Champs. And I was like, okay, cool. So from there, and I was like, because I didn't think it, because by that point I'd already transitioned into triathlon, and my friend had a T-shirt that said, triathlon's not a sport, it's a lifestyle. And I mean, so at the age of 14, I'm already training 15, 16 hours a week, like 2 or 3 hours a day, which is, to the layperson, fucking full on. Like I was doing 4 or 5 hour rides on a Saturday morning at the age of 15. Like it's pretty intense. Loved every minute of it. There was not a moment where I would never go to training. Yeah. And then, won a few medals in team stuff and went to nationals a few times, and then was in an elite squad when I was 16, just before I got my license. So bless my mum, single mum, a son of my little brother was an elite football player and I was an elite triathlete. And so she had 2 different training sessions every afternoon and somehow managed to get us to everything. So big up Penny, you're a legend. And then and so I joined this elite squad, and I was then I got a New Balance sponsorship. I got a sponsorship from a local cycling shop, and all these sorts of things. And that was year 11 for me. And in year 11 at my boys, I went to a private boys' school, and there was a thing called the Talented Sports Program. So I was in that, and it was basically an extra study period. So I didn't have to do any homework out of school. I had enough time rearranged for me at school to do that. And then, so year 11 was what we call it was like a building year. It was all about building up for year 12, which was 17, which was for the nationals. And then, I went on a training camp, did like 450K of cycling in 3 days, which also had like 20K of swimming and like two half marathons, like over 3 days in Jindabyne. Yeah. Like I rode from Canberra to Jindabyne, it was 190K, like at age 17. Like, yeah. These sort of things. That's the level of intensity and endurance that I had, and I loved. Like I frothed on it. And then, a very short way to end it really was that I had 3 or 4 races that were big time races, and they all went to shit. And there was one was a mechanical problem. One was I got a blue bottle stung across my face. I got all these sort of things.
That's a story that's what we were talking about at ESO. That was you were very descriptive.
So in triathlon, most triathletes, they have their favourite leg or their best leg, and mine was always swimming, being a swimmer, coming from a swimmer. And I also played a bit of water polo. So you ever see those mass starts for triathlon where there's like 100 people just running and it's just carnage. I was the dude who was like on top of people, smashing through them, because I just knew how to sort of tackle bodies in the water. Yeah. So my plan was always, especially these elite level races, was to sort of be in the lead pack of the swim or lead out of the swim. So my bike was my weakest leg. So then I could chill out a bit while the stronger cyclists and sort of try and stick with them and hold it together for the run. So I'm swimming out. This is in Wollongong, and I'm swimming out through the marina of Wollongong, and I get this blue bottle stain across my face. And for about 4 or 5 strokes, I'm trying to swim and pull this thing off my face. I got wrapped around my goggles. I was just like, this is the most insane pain. I feel like I've been whipped across the face. Anyway, I get it off and I swim through, and I think I came out of the water maybe second or third, and my coach is like, and I'm like screaming at my coach, and I'm like, and he goes, "What's up?" I'm like, "I got a blue bottle, I've been stung." And then as I've come out of transition with my bike, he's just splashed a bucket of vinegar over my face. So I'm now riding at about 30k an hour with my face in absolute agony, on fire. I've got vinegar in my eyes, and I'm trying to sort of get everything done. And so, that race obviously went to shit by the end of the run. And then I had a few others. And what happened was I just sat down one day at the end of the third race that went, was really bad. It was actually a qualifying race for the Junior Olympics. And I sat there and I had this big conversation with myself of like, I don't think I can actually handle the depression of losing. And if I have to base, it's sort of like with the music thing, it's like if you have to base your entire existence around, I'm going to win, and you're not the reason that you didn't win, I don't think I could have handled. Maybe I would have learnt to. I don't know. But at that point, there was this pivotal time when I was trying to go. Do I go to Europe, try and get sponsored? Do I stay in Canberra and go to uni and be a normal sort of kid? And then I just decided, that's it, stuff it. I'm going to stay in Canberra, and pretty much gave up pretty instantly. Like went from training 7 or 8. 10 or 11 times a week to not training at all.
Yeah.
That would have been 2000. I think I started running again in about 2008.
Yeah.
About 8 years of just, and what I did, this is the segue into the music thing that I think you're talking about, is I applied, I was dabbling with poetry and writing and all that sort of thing. But my family, we're a sporty family. We weren't artistic people. Like we're suburban white people from Australia. A lot of them are very artistic, unfortunately. So I was very much pushed into to a sports lifestyle. And then I started dabbling with writing, and I really enjoyed it. And then I got into, and one of my friends actually rapped me one of my poems, and I was like, what? And all my friends are musical, and I was like, I want to be cool and play music, but I suck at the drums. I sucked at guitar, I was just like, and I'd play. I was so keen at playing drums, and I'd like record myself, listen back, and just go, oh, dude, that's so bad. Like,
yeah.
So my friend rapped me my poem, and he said, there you go, that's rapping, and I was like mind blown sort of thing. So I spent a good 18 months, and then I went back and learned a lot of classic songs like you would with the other sort of technique, like swimming technique. You'd model yourself on someone else. So I modeled myself, and my favorite was Charlie Tuna. Love the way he flows. Subba dibba dubba dibba dubba. I'm like, oh, how do you do that? Like, that's how I want to rap.
Yeah.
So I learned a couple of the Jurassic 5 Quality Control album. I learned from word. There's no other album out there that I know from the first word to the last word of the entire album, all four MCs. Like I had it on tape in my car, and I was driving around just listening to it constantly, studying it.
Yeah.
And I applied that idea to my music, and I still do that now. When I write a new verse, I'll just sit there and go over it again, and then I'll go over the bits that are not quite fitting, and I'll just loop the beat and just keep going until I get that bit. I get that bit, do it again, do it again, do it again, and then I'll do it. And what I like to say is every 16 bars gets 16 hours. Sort of my training ethic, I guess, of writing.
Yeah.
And so, so then I moved to Melbourne, like on a whim. Me and my brother both decided to move. Dad was living here, so we moved in with Dad. And
from where?
From Canberra.
Okay, yeah. So that's where you're originally from?
Well, not really, because Dad was in the Navy. So before Mum and Dad split, we moved around a fair bit, and that's how we ended up in Canberra. So I grew up in Darwin, up a little town outside of Darwin called Howard Springs, which is now, as far as I'm aware, a massive gas refinery. Like it's it's sort of gone that way, and that's a little bit out of the territory. So that was interesting on its own accord. And then we moved to Canberra when I was 9, and that was sort of the first time I sort of understood racism, like territory. The Northern Territory people from the territory, it's like this saying, it was like black fella, white fella. It's like, it's not a racist slur to call an Aboriginal person a black fella. Whereas in Canberra, that is, you can't say that. What do you mean? I'm like, well, that's what they are, isn't it? I thought hang on, I'm confused about this. Yeah. And race relations in Canberra, being predominantly white sort of area, very, very different to territory ever. And no one, and I'd never really experienced it. I'd never really experienced racism. We even ran around without shoes on till like we played rugby. I remember playing rugby at age 8 and no one had shoes on. Like it's just a thing. Territory is very different. But so then to Canberra and then we moved. I moved to Melbourne at 20. So I'd done a bit of uni and sort of went, all right, stuff.
Yeah. And were you studying marketing at uni?
I was studying creative. I started off studying science. And then I dropped out and went to arts and did professional writing. And just did, because I said, well, I want to write, so I just want to study what I write. And then my minors were politics and philosophy and all these cool subjects that I was just genuinely interested in. Like I probably, one of those things is a bit of a useless degree, but also learnt a lot of really, really interesting stuff that I wouldn't really learn.
Yeah, yeah. But they sort of broadened your horizon of understanding of how the world works, which gives you ammunition for what...
It gave me, basically, well, I'll describe it, it's gave me really good shit to write about, to rap about, you know?
Yeah.
Well, this is like, you know, politics and social issues and that sort of stuff. One of my favourite subjects was global environmental politics. I was like, I've been a greenie since like 07. Like I've been like just studying, like, you know, but this is when China first took over from the US as the biggest polluter. Yeah. Things like that. And it's like now that the whole climate change movement, so I'm like, oh wow, finally, like it's coming around. Like I've been going on about this for so long. Yay. Yeah. So yeah, and I studied a lot of philosophy. That was really exciting. A lot of international, just a lot of random stuff. Yeah. Because I wanted to, like. And yeah, have I used it? No. I've written a lot about it, but I haven't really used it. You know, it's not like a business degree or a marketing degree or something that sort of gives you a stream straight into a field. Yeah. No, I understand, man. I did geopolitics as well at RMIT, so and those are the subjects that I did the best at. Yep, that's it. Yeah. Middle Eastern politics, man. Well, I was a HD student in Middle Eastern politics. Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah. Like learn about the Sykes-Picot Agreement and all these how they carved up the Middle East. Exactly right. Like literally how it's one of the only places, I mean, it's there in Africa that have straight borders. Like how do you, like, how does that happen? Everywhere else in the world has like, it just follows this river, then this mountain ridge. No, the earth got split in half in a perfect line. That's right. Yeah, totally. You know, during this entire time, what kind of music were you listening to? Like, were you into drum and bass? Back in the day, I was really into heavy metal. So I was into music that made me move because I had a really awesome Walkman when Walkmans were a thing, and I had tape headphones. Of the CD. Yeah, tape because CDs would bounce around. So if I'm running or cycling, that's true. It's not giving. The whole reason I listened to music was to charge me along. So I'd be sitting there, you know, on my aero bars, my triathlon training, like da 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 da. And so I was into bands like Pantera, Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, my first love. Yep. Evil Empire goes down still to this day as my favourite album of all time. Then through that sort of I was a new metal kid. I had baggy camo pants, still rock baggy camo pants. I had the chain wallet. I had the flat cap, like, you know, that's hence the tribal tats and everything. Like I was a 90s, late 90s new metal kid. System of a Down, like Incubus, those sort of bands, you know, really sort of encapsulated my idea of music. And then, so through that, I found Cypress Hill was the first sort of hip hop that I got into, which I really, really liked. And then they did a tune with Ronnie Size, and I was like, oh, okay. And then a few of my friends were into drum and bass, and a few things didn't really take my fancy until I heard Ghetto Celebrity, Ronnie Size and Method Man. And I was like, now what the hell is this? Like I liked the tune that they did with Zach, but there's certain types of drum and bass that I like where that snare's just on I love that sort of roll with it. Anyway, so that was, and I was like, what the hell is this? This is incredible. I really like this music. And I'd listened to like a couple of pirate radio shows with Skibba D and Shabba D, and they're scatting, oh, here we go. How do you rap that fast? Like, and then what I think big change from big influence on me was Scribe. I don't know if you remember Scribe. How many dudes you know roll like this? How many dudes you know flow like this? Yeah, it was a huge tune in Australia in about 02, 03. Okay, yeah. Huge. This Kiwi rapper have just blew
All right, okay.
blew the airwaves apart.
So it's an Australian, New Zealand kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like, and,
maybe why I don't know
as
it.
we do, we always culturally appropriate anything Kiwi. It's like, oh, it must be good. Yeah, it's Australian. Like, but, anyway, so this song was rad, and what he did was he did a lot of double time flows on it, and I was like, wow, okay. And like I'd done with Charlie Tuna, I just sat down one night and just learnt word for word this rap, and then I actually heard him do. It was what the version was a remix of a song he'd done with Concord Dawn. So then I heard the Concord Dawn song. I was like, oh, okay, I want to learn I want to learn how to rap like that. So, yeah. And then what happened with me was in about, when I started to get back into running in about 2008, I had an iPod and I put on Jay Wicker.
This is after you stopped doing triathlon.
So I stopped and walked away from. I sold my $2,000 bike. I bought a crappy little mountain bike to ride around the city and be a cool hipster in Melbourne. Like I went from being full athlete, wearing activewear in public to shunning it properly. I was like, that's not me anymore. And then a few times, I remember you touched on in your first podcast about depression and anxiety, and I had a red hot crack at ending my own life twice, and was in some very dark places with drugs and alcohol and the party lifestyle. And then one day I just went. It was a Tuesday arvo. I was still fucked from the weekend, and I got home from work, and I was like, I'm gonna go for a run. I went for a run, and I hadn't run properly in a good 5 years, and I just came back and I felt really high, and I was like, this is great. Like, okay, cool. Yeah. It's better than smoking cones. Sweet. All right. Yep. Maybe we should give this a crack. And then the next week I ran a bit further, and then a couple of weeks later I went, all right, I'm going to go do some effort. So there's different styles of training, and one of my favorite ones is effort. So you just say like 2 minutes max out, a minute easy, and you do that 5 times or whatever. Like. And I had some drum and bass on it, and all of a sudden I got to this and I was like, all right, let's go for this effort. And what happened was my feet synced up with the music. So I'm at this certain, so there's like your anaerobic threshold, which in endurance sport, it's as hard as you can go without lactating. So it's as hard as you can go without before you start dying. And the layperson who doesn't train doesn't have a very
high threshold.
Yeah, high. They've got their thresholds, their aerobic and anaerobic threshold are very, very, very far apart.
Yeah.
Whereas an endurance athlete can hold this level, and it's fucking hard, but you don't burn out. You don't lactate and die. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm realizing, holy crap, this is why I love drum and bass so much. But the first time I heard drum and bass at a rave and I started dancing to it, I was like, wow, it just fits. This is sick. Cool. I didn't even think about it. Like when I first heard techno and house, I was like, all right, how do you dance cool? Like
groovy.
With drum and bass, I didn't even think about it. All of a sudden my feet are moving. I didn't think anything about it until I was on this run doing these efforts. And I realized, holy shit, my feet are moving at 172 or we're moving at 86 BPM. And I'm like, what the hell? And all of a sudden I was like trying to stay, and I'm like, this is. So from the age of say 9, the age of 17, I was running at a DMB tempo. You know what I mean? Like without even knowing it. And it's like, so that rhythm is actually kind of ingrained in me. And to the point where when I'm running without headphones and I want to get to a certain pace, I won't even need my heart rate monitor or anything. I'll just start going, I just start thinking of a big DMB tune and get my feet to go like, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I could just, it's just a BPM that's
synonymous with you.
It's been embedded in me for so long. So yeah, that was how I sort of realised where drum and bass had sort of had this effect on me. And then, I just, later on when I started trying to record, I realised I needed to switch up my accent a little bit. And I'd always been very anti-guys switching their accents. I was like, no, it's Australian music, mate. You got to sound like an Aussie dude. Like, and not like Bogan, but like you've got to sound. Yeah. And then I sort of tried a few, and I was recording. And then all of a sudden I just found this kind of voice like with Frostbite, and I was like, oh, okay, you can sort of, and what, big shout out to Johnny Hooves, the master of my, the master of my backline. And
the master in general.
The master in general, absolute weapon. He calls my accent interneutral, as in it's not quite Australian, it's not quite English, it's not quite American, it's not quite Jamaican, it's got this whole.
Not Kiwi either.
Yeah. And I said, what I've tried to do is pick the best vowel sounds from all of those languages and make it so you can't really tell. And it's kind of a compliment when people say, oh, this, I didn't even realize you're Australian when I heard that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like that's exactly what I'm going for. I don't want to be pigeonholed into a location. I want to make international music.
Yeah.
So I want to have an international voice.
Yeah, that's it's quite distinct, because especially if you have like international listeners, like say, someone from America, like they don't listen to, for example, not a lot of Americans listen to say Dizzy Rascal, from the UK, who's got very specific flow. Even myself being, so influenced by G-Funk and, West Coast hip hop. When I was younger and I heard Dizzy Rascal, I was like, man, what is this?
Yep.
What is this crap?
Yeah.
Later on, like maybe like 2 years ago or a year ago, I don't know if you listen to Sway in the Morning.
Yep,
sometimes. And I listen to a lot of Sway in the Morning, which is somewhat of an inspiration to this show, like especially having you, like how you intro and that. So I want to have a show where I get to have my guests do shit like that.
Right, yeah.
So he had Dizzy Rascal on, and listening to it with this now influence of drum and bass, like as a choice of music I like listening to, and obviously drum and bass MCs kind of like now influencing my tastes and preferences. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So for you to sort of kind of be able to relate to, say, Americans, it's important, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's I think that I don't know. I've nationalism and music doesn't really go together.
It does not.
So I always found this thing. I always felt a bit ostracized from the Australian hip hop community, because they were like, "Oh, Aussie hip hop, Aussie hip hop, Aussie." I was like, I wonder if people who make hip hop in France call it French hip hop, or if they just call it hip hop, or do the Japanese rappers call it Japanese hop, or like I just always found it interesting that we made this ownership of it. Back in the day, there was very much an ostracization of anybody who was in an accent, who used an accent. It was very frowned upon.
Trying to sound, say, American.
Oh, anyone. I remember this one bloke. I remember this line. I'd rather have a wank than spit anything yank. Like, it's just like, and that was very indicative of the mentality.
Yeah, pretty much nailed. Like that's it encapsulated, isn't it?
Pretty much,
yeah. Say that again. I'd rather have a wank than sound like a yank.
Sound like a yank, yeah. And there's And then there was a lot of, and I didn't really like the bogan sort of accent of rapping. Even though some of their stories are really interesting, I found it too abrasive. And then what I really love was
the
when
high pitch peak.
Yeah.
I had that on the tip of my tongue.
Nasal.
Right, but live.
Yeah, no, I'm right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, I don't know, like, it's just a personal preference. Maybe I'm just a bit too posh for my own good, like.
Yeah.
But then the Hilltop Hoods sort of blew up, and I was like, this, I can get around this. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
And then a lot of music coming out of Melbourne really made me go, like TZU, for example, like the inner city Melbourne stuff, maybe not so much the suburban Melbourne stuff, really, really tickled my fancy. And then a lot of other artists, like coming from Elephant Tracks, so guys like The Herd, that had this really very, very Australian way of saying things, but it's like, it's the middle Australian accent, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And that's where I sort of found myself a bit more aligned with. And then taking that into drum and bass, I decided, well, it doesn't, the tone of MCs seem to work better when they're a bit lower. They sit sort of like
a deeper sort of.
Yeah. And those sort of tunes, mine sort of goes a bit blank at the moment to use examples, but it seems to work a lot better when they're very relaxed. It's the opposite to on stage.
Yeah.
On stage, you want to be
yeah.
When you record it, that doesn't come across very well. I've tried to do that a few times, and I just listen to it and go,
you sort of slip on your words kind of thing.
Yeah, but it just sounds shit. It sounds really rushed, really hurried. Whereas live, that's why I kind of hate it when people record live sets. I'm like, I don't like listening back to myself. But live, it's about that energy. It's about that vibe. And because you're only doing it for, say, 8 bars, 4 bars, real quick, get in.
Yeah.
And whereas on a recording, it doesn't relate that well. And there's still some times where you can use certain little certain tricks in it, but you don't want to have the whole verse being too much for the listener.
Yeah, because they're trying to actually make out what the lyrics are saying.
That's exactly right.
At the same time. Yeah. And say like your new track Viper. It's pretty audible, like, your sort of pace and also that style of drum and bass is kind of, which is the type of drum and bass I like to play in my sets. It's that stripped back, kind of this dark undertone,
It's designed to be double dropped. It's designed to have it's a mixing track. You know what I mean? Which is I think that's one thing. I think I was actually discussing this with a friend today coming back from our ride. He's a big shout to Brody. He's not in our scene. He's not a DJ. He's just a punter.
Yeah.
And we were listening to tunes and he's like, oh, you pick the next song. I'm like, man, just chuck a mix on it. He goes, no, what do you mean? I'm like, I find electronic music quite repetitive. So it's 4 minutes of the same song. I'd rather let someone like yourself or someone like Shem or someone like Tay or a DJ who really enjoys putting the next song together.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. But you press play an hour and a half later, then you got to worry about what the next song comes on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've listened to drum and bass like that for years. I don't know any artist names, song names. Like I'm shocking, especially when people try and get the scenes to chat happening. And you're like, what about that remix? I'm like, how's it go? Does it go dun 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 dun? Oh, that one,
yeah. What's that chord and the hook? Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's funny, man. Drum and bass is a new genre that I've only been mixing for the last maybe year and a half. And with all the other genres that I've been like, especially psytrance, I'm like an encyclopedia. I can tell you. Now there's a whole bunch of new artists that that I'm like, I'm not really into that. So I'm like, I don't care. But drum and bass is like, look, man, I don't know who these guys are. Like I think Critical Sound's probably one of my favorite.
They're good. Yep.
But even you mentioned like RB and all that.
Yep.
Man, I listen to that. I just know that's the style of drum and bass I like.
Yep. There's very much. There's a certain types of stuff, certain types of like subgenres of drum and bass. But there seems to be a theme with the good stuff.
Yeah. It's obviously, all this conversation, you've kind of like talked about how you like to pronounce things and enunciate things, and it's something you mentioned again in our earlier conversation at ESO. Did you say you study like linguistics?
Yeah, linguistics was one of my majors. Yeah, so that was really exciting. Studying how the tongue and mouth make the sounds and what they. Even the phonetic alphabet and stuff and learning. I remember that when we were talking about where you're from, Bahrain, and you're like, and you teaching me how to say Bahrain.
Yeah, Bahrain.
I was so intrigued by I really want to learn that sound because that's a new sound my mouth doesn't know how to make.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I've always loved beatboxing as well. So it's using the mouth as an instrument, I think is really, really, playing instruments is like I don't understand how that works. So my brain doesn't work like that. Watching a drummer do 4 things at once, having 3 or 4 different rhythms, my brain does not compute.
It's a different neural pathway.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then I can do things. Yeah, exactly right. But then I can do things where I'm doing, I might do something and then catching a breath or doing something, and people are like, how do you not lose breath? I'm like, because you catch breath here and here and here. And they're like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, I don't know, just doing it in the background for so long. So linguistics was really awesome. I actually had my linguistics teacher call me out a few times in lectures to enunciate sounds. She's like, I remember that sound, because I'd be like, what's that sound? Like this weird random dot. She's like, oh, that's an African sound. I was like, it's like, cool. Like, yeah. I'm like, no. And then all of a sudden I'm doing like using that as a cowbell in my drum beats and stuff. So
yeah.
that was kind of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, all right, you're a fan of linguistics. You're a fan of pronouncing things in a certain way, and obviously you're also a fan of poetry.
Yep.
So was that the sort of the poetry came first? Obviously, then you found drum and bass was the rhythm of which you like to operate at.
Yep.
Which just so happened to fit with poetry, because it's poetry in motion in a sense.
Yep.
And then at that point you were kind of like, I want to push myself lyrically, or I don't know what's enunciated. You know what I mean? Like you want to find a way to bend words to your will.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Definitely. And say things that. The other thing too is I've always tried to have a bit of a message with my music. So there's always a fine line between being preachy and being arrogant. Like one of my lines early on was, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I walk it every day with ostentatious extravagance. It's like people that don't know me might think I'm arrogant, but I think I'm just supremely confident in my abilities. It's sort of it's an athlete's mindset, I guess, is like there is no second, you need to believe that you're good. But at the same time, the artist mindset of, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I think the combo of those two has really has set me up to be quite, it helps me in my creativity, because I know I'm good. I don't think I'm good though. Does that sort of make sense? It's
and it's important.
Yeah, it is.
It's important to think you're good.
It's important to. Well, I think it's important to know you're good. As soon as you start to believe that you're good, I feel like that's when artists start to their quality starts to lack. Whereas if you think this is crap, put it and go, oh, and then someone goes, actually that's, and then a few months later or a few years later, you listen back to it and go, actually, wow, that is pretty good. Like I'm glad I did put that out, and you know, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, it's part of one of those struggles is you never know you're good until someone kind of tells you. But then, was it difficult? You know, you brushed upon this, sort of you fell into this depression, and was that kind of as a result of you had this void in your life, that athleticism?
Well, I didn't know it at the time. And I was doing, doing heaps of drugs, playing in a couple of bands, doing heaps of drugs, hanging out with people who did heaps of drugs. Drugs was the cool thing at that time of my life. I was trying to be a rock star and doing drugs, and I thought I was invincible. And I think everyone in their early to mid 20s kind of does. It's a very
natural progression.
Yeah, it is, until you sort of realise maybe you're not. And it wasn't until I sort of started getting back into it slowly that I thought maybe this is the piece that I'm missing from my life, because I did feel very much like my job kind of sucked. Music was going sweet, but there was a lot of void that I filled with drugs. And then when I started getting back into my fitness, I don't know, you don't feel like smoking bongs if you just ran 10K. Like you just genuinely don't.
Yeah.
Like it's not a feeling. It's you have one and go, oh, why did I do that? And then you're like, because you've just cleared out all this crap from your lungs and your brain. All of a sudden you're just like on this weird tweaker level of the tobacco and stuff. So I think that when I rediscovered I just refer to it as training. When I rediscovered my need for training, everything since that point has just been, I've just gotten better. And then I find myself, not so much anymore in the last sort of 5 years, but between sort of 08 and 14, that sort of 6 year period, the times when life sucked were the times when I wasn't training.
Yeah.
And I've sometimes focused more on training than I do on music, but I'm kind of okay with that because music comes in bursts and I never feel crap after a run or a swim. You know what I mean? Whereas if you play a bad gig, you could be like, you know, when you shit the bed sometimes on stage, you're like, oh no. I can't believe I said that. And I've done that a lot of times in drum and bass, been too drunk and said something that I thought was hilarious. Few people thought hilarious. Most people thought I was a gigantic douche.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't believe I said that.
Oh, man, I can, Which
is great having Shem as such a close mate because he's very quickly to go, not on.
He's so critical, isn't he?
He's so critical, but there's just no bullshit. You know think fully where you stand. Like,
I've collaborated with him as well on stage, and I think for a creative person, honesty, like in collaboration, honesty is so important.
So important, and not to like, and the way you're honest is also important too, because you don't want to hurt people's feelings and say, it doesn't work. But you can go about it in certain ways that everyone feels comfortable about it. Yeah, that's not working. Okay, cool, it's not working. All right, sweet. No, as opposed to this sucks, dude. Like, there's always ways of going about it.
So you've obviously, I mean, that's kind of like a part of your story is to make the music. You have to collaborate with the producers. So for you, where does that process start? Like, what comes first? Guy comes over to you with a beat, or you sort of have the lyrics?
I tend to just write. I'll just write bits and pieces. So when I having a big chat with another friend of mine, Angus Green, we were talking about it. Big Gussie. Big ups, Gussie.
Awesome producer.
Yeah, incredible producer. And I was at this point about 2 years ago where I was trying to write every day. And we had this chat and he goes, I can't do it. I can't do it that way. I'm like, that's where you find the gold. He said, no, I'll wait for the gold. And I'm like, from an athlete's point of view, if you wait to get fit, that doesn't compute. So how would you
get up and do it?
Get up and just keep doing it and then you get better at it, And it turns out maybe I've gotten to the point where I know enough about what I want to do and I've honed my craft well enough now that I can come up with clever things. But they just sometimes come to me and then all of a sudden it'll come to me and I'll write a bit down and then I'll come back to it a day later and then boom, the whole thing will come out. And it's not this as opposed to day in, day out grind of trying to find it. It's just like when it does come, bang, grab it and let it go sort of thing. So I think because, I'm not releasing material every week. I'm not at that level. So,
I think a lot of that anyways is people just have a backlog of stuff.
Yeah, of stuff that they've sort of sat on for forever. So I tend to write stuff, and then when I like it, I'll type it out and make it all nice, and then I save it on my computer, and then it just sort of sits there sometimes until. I mean, I've just done a collab with a couple of guys. Big up men like Enzyme, an American producer and a harder beat speaker, and that verse has been sitting on my computer for about 4 years. Just waiting for a home. And they just sit there now. Yeah. And back in the day, I used to be like, oh, cool, and force it. And then just sort of, I'd listen back to it. Now I listen back to things and go, oh, that doesn't really fit that well. Like that hook and the vibe doesn't really go. So now I just sit and I just write these things and they just sit there and wait until someone sends me something. But sometimes it does happen the other way.
Yeah.
You know, Frostbite was the other way. I got sent the beat and it was called Frostbite. So that's when I start talking with producers, what I ask for them is tell me when to stop and start and give me a title. Give me something to write to. Otherwise, it's just
topic, subject.
I find I just get lost a bit, and then I start talking about the things I always talk about, like the system sucks and pop music's crap, and beautiful people are losers, like things like that. Things like that. So when I get given a title, it's like, okay, sweet. How am I going to work this? And yeah, so that's what I sort of prefer. So yeah, I tend to write and wait, or I get given something, and that piques my curiosity.
Yeah. I definitely think like talking to Kudos and then talking to you obviously about your different styles. His is obviously he raps to hip hop, which has the chorus, the hook, the verse, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's easy, isn't it, with the drum and bass thing, because a lot of it, that's like you've got a continuous run to just rip it.
Totally, and I can stop and start, and sometimes I'll go, oh, music's changing, stop now. It's not, there's no point me going. So that 16 became a 12, or that sort of thing, and then I'll just change it up, and then you can tape bits, and then you can work. It's almost like a stand-up comedian. You can work on your bits to lock in, oh, hang on, no, I like that bit where I went out, but like put the pause in there and came in with the triplet as opposed to keeping it on a other sort of rhythm. So yeah, that's a lot more fun. There's a lot more freedom, which I used to get nervous about, like, oh God, how do I, and then the amount of times I've like, especially early on when I was doing drum and bass, I'd get nervous, get on stage, then get off stage and go, crap, that was 2 hours. Like I think, what happened then? What did I even say? Like I just got lost on the vibe and just,
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. I love longer sets of drum and bass. Like sometimes it's so bad I had to run off and take a piss, or like, or get one of my friends to go buy me a drink at the bar. I'm like, I've got no water. My mouth is parched. Like I'm standing next to a smoke machine. I'm just inhaling crap. Like I need drinks. So yeah, that's that freedom and that ability to sort of do a bit more with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or less, I guess, is probably, I don't know, less is more sometimes, isn't it?
Maybe with drum and bass, because like, again, you were talking about that, the fast, recording fast, the recording slow. Like, yeah, it's like I do rap myself.
Yep.
Not as good as yourself, but I can rap. And I am unfortunately one of those guys that has an accent in their rap, but that's my thing.
That's what I said to you. Like I've changed that tune on me now. Like as long as it sounds good, it doesn't really care.
Yeah. I tried to rap on drum and bass, and that like first of that like the time I cannot do that, and I'm very impressed that you can actually do that. I was like, man, I don't know how shy you feel, but I'm like, how do you actually do that? Because a lot of people are like, man, how do you do that double syllable?
So it's there's certain words I think that are better for it, I do teach when I find rappers who rap fast or like to rap fast, I'll teach them how to do it to drum and bass, and they're just like
so natural to them,
and they just go, like, you just don't know when to start and when to stop.
Yeah,
that's it. If you don't do those things properly, the crowd hates you and you sound like a dick. And then you make all of us look like dicks. It's not just
you're representing right now.
That's right. If you're an MC and you're on stage doing D&B, you got to be doing good, or you're going to do us all a disservice. I hate MCs. See, this is why I hate MCs. Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a thing, man. Some really good gigs and some really good MCs, but the MC's like, dude, you're kind of talking.
You ruined the fucking thing. Oh, that's how I got into it. So I was playing my bands, and so drum and bass was always my little rinse out. I'd just go, after a gig or whatever, go to D&B night, pop a pinger, take my shirt off and rinse, you know what I mean? That was my thing. I loved it.
So bass.
Yeah. I've been there doing the corner, just chewing his jaw off, sweating balls, like, sick.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends, the bass player in my band, took me to a party, and Dougie was running the party, sub-bass party, and they said, Kodiak Kid wants an MC. And my friend Anthony goes, oh, Dan's an MC. And I was like, oh yeah, but like to hip hop, like, like to that. And they're like, then Dougie's like, oh, he's playing glitch hop. I'm like, well, I mean, do you know, yeah, cool, I'll give it a crack sort of thing. And I walk up on stage and slap fives with Corey, and I said, oh, what sort of BPM are you playing? He's like, oh, 95 to 105. I'm like, yeah, sweet, that's my bag.
Yeah. It's a good energetic BPM totally. for that genre.
For that sort of thing. And they said the same thing, just did a couple of bars, did a few things, and sort of got into it that way. And then met Tay and Shem were there. So they were like, hey, what are you doing? Our first party's next week. Do you want to come and host the side room or do the side room with Hazy? I was like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. But I'd been to so many D&B gigs where I was like, in the front row, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, there was one. I won't mention the MC because he's a good friend of mine. But there was one party, and one a big name from New Zealand. Again, I won't mention any names because people will be able to put the party together or the venue. But me and my brother, so me and my little brother's my best mate and my best critic. Like he's the dude I bounce anything off. And he and I and this other friend of ours, this one song came on and it was very iconic in our group of friends, this one tune. And we were all just like, here we go. Like the three of us just like turned into this 3-man mosh pit. And the MC just was the whole thing. And we're like, and like my mate standing there going, like just pointing at the MC, just yelling at him, like, you've ruined this track for us. Like we're like, let's go to the smokers room. And like, and we were just like, and so I'm sure I have done it in the past, but I genuinely try not to be that guy. I really try and add to the music. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll just shut up. And I don't understand how I get complimented for that. That's one of the biggest compliments most DJs could be, oh, you know when to be shut up. I'm like, how is that? Doing nothing's really easy.
Plus there's
how
more.
Is that a compliment?
Yeah.
It's just like, I think a lot of MCs just get nervous and go, oh, I've got to be doing something. It's like, no, you don't, man. Just chill. Yeah. Just find your rhythm. You'll find your spot. You'll pick your bit to come in and kill it, and then get out and let the music go. Because at the end of the day, the crowd's here for the music. They're not here for, unless you're a big name international MC, maybe they might be here to see you.
Like Charlie Tuna, for example, Fun
totally.
Contours, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the best shows I've ever, that sets, I saw them at Earth Freak and I was just like,
yeah, and his voice, he has the most unique voice as well. Yeah.
And I met him twice, and he is just one of the most lovely dudes. Hey, he's just so humble to the point where I was sort of a bit like, sorry for being your fan, like, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm so like excited to meet you, and just watching his demeanor about it, I was like, okay, really sorry, just wanted to say, love your work, dude, thank you, and I'm out, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. I think I wouldn't change my musical direction for anything to come from hip hop, where it was a bit more set up, to drum and bass, where I can literally kind of do anything. It's a lot more freedom, and I do bask in that, because sometimes I used to jokingly say I get paid to have the best dance spot, because there's no one around me. I can just dance on stage. I've got this whole spot here, you know, like that was my little joke about like I love MCing, but I just get paid to dance by myself, like.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely have a stage presence that feels, it feels dominant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the athlete in you, or.
I think it's also, again, studying. I really love learning. Like, I've got so many different qualifications and I've done all these random jobs, but I really love learning. And a few times I watch artists. I remember watching Lyrics Born. and watching him and the way he controlled the crowd and just standing there mesmerised. My little bro said to me, we're both cooked, and he's like, you're not dancing to it. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm just watching this absolutely incredible stage presence and going, I want to, just the way he commanded the crowd, just the way he stood there and owned that space. I was like, that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where, again, with hip hop and like live ciphers and all that sort of stuff, I get a little bit like, because it's such a
Competitive.
Yeah, it's so competitive and it's this big dick fight, and I kind of like. I don't mean to sound incredibly arrogant, but I'll blow all you out of the water if it was on a drum and bass stage. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that
if
whole.
It's my territory.
It's my territory. Like come at me, bro. Like
yeah.
So yeah, that's and that's again, it's again about I'm here and I'm present, but I'm not the main act. You know
Focus,
what I mean? Like I'm not the main focus, and it's really good fun when I play with DJs who know me and know my style, because then they're going to play things as well. My favorite set, to compliment me. Like my favorite set is with Tay at Esoteric, because we both know he knows he's playing with the only MC the weekend, so he's playing me tunes. Yeah, that he knows like there's very little vocals. It's all just slamming stuff that I can go. It doesn't sound out of place. Yeah.
And you've been their MC for a while now.
But Tay and I have played, Shem and I have played at things, but once he started getting a bit more of the turntablism stuff, I'd get up and do sort of half sets with him. But Tay and I, we've played a couple of big festivals, like big mainstream sort of festivals, and we've been like the token Melbourne DMB act, and it's been really, really sweet. And again, he'll change his set because he could play totally, any style he wants, but he's like, Dan's going to be up. Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Make some stuff that's going to make that whole set sound a bit better. So that's really awesome.
That's an important sort of understanding each other
totally
artistically.
A relationship. And it's like we don't necessarily hang out all that much. We see each other at gigs all the time and stuff, but it's like this whole, I know he's got my back. I know, and he knows I'm gonna, got his and
be there when he needs you.
Yeah, totally. So make any announcements I need to announce. I love it when people give me things to announce. Like, bar manager comes up, the bar's closing in half an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the bar's closing in half an hour. So if you were thinking about having a drink, maybe you should go to the bar now and get a drink.
I can relate to that so much. All my friends, yes, Gillo, you're like, I know Off's that guy. He's that guy in our crew, who just, who will riff on a mic for I feel like we've covered so much, and we've definitely brushed upon all these things I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah. There's, I guess, one last thing that I wanted to ask you is, you at some point went to see Bo Kitty from Reality Check, who has invited me to her podcast, and he's, hey, shout out to Bo.
Shout out to Bo.
It's one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you is by obviously going to someone like that, you've kind of made this decision to say, I want to go from here to here. The same way that you go, okay, I don't want to just do training, but I want to win, like I want to win the championship,
That's right. Yep.
What was that sort of push to kind of, it's time for that?
I'd moved back to Melbourne, and so my partner and I moved back to, lived in Noosa for a couple of years, just did the mad sea change, and I came back to Melbourne, and it was sort of like I've had this in the last 2 years, this saying of like, piss or get off the pot. Like, I'm starting to get towards 40. It's like, what am I going to do with this stuff? What's my legacy going to be? It was, my first child's on the way. It's like, what am I going to show them? And I was like, right, okay, I want to level up. That's what I kept saying in this particular year, and that's what Bo sort of does. So I sat down and had my session with her, and I walked out, and I did my partner. I was like, I'm scared now. She goes, what do you mean? Like, because now I can see it's actually possible. Like before that, it was all just like, these plans and dreams and the goals. But when someone sits there and puts them in perspective for you and says, you just need to do this to get this. Right. Now I've got to do things like, I'm just enjoying just letting it float around. But it's like, no, if you want to be a pro, you have to get with pro. So Bo's in one of my, Bo's one of the people I say, like, I've got a team, like a little team. So Johnny's my sound guy. Johnny Hooves my sound person. I don't understand anything about technical stuff. I don't understand how it sounds good or why it sounds good. That's a Johnny problem. I will send Johnny.
It's important. Yeah.
That's it. That's my guy. Like if I'm doing a really good collab, I'll be like, hey dude, and he doesn't necessarily do these sorts of things for just like a quick little thing, and I might be able to just quickly catch him on the fly or send him. Like I wanted to upload a track the other day, an old track to my Bandcamp, and I couldn't figure out, like, this is how basic bitch I am when it comes to audio. I couldn't figure out how to change an MP3 to a wave. And I'm like, Johnny, what the hell, dude? He's like, just send it to me. Just send it back 10 minutes later. I was like, thank you, mate. Like,
yeah, it's like, this is so trivial. I don't even want to walk you through.
What is lossless? I don't understand. That's the thing. Like, is that one that sounds good or not sounds good? I don't get it. I'm just a dumb rapper. Like, and Bo's very much my
mentor?
like content. Yeah. But so with the 10 Duff Commandments. So the next single I'm doing is a 10 Duff Commandments, which is it's a homage to Biggie's 10 Crack Commandments, but it's about getting cooked in the bush in Australia. And I wanted to be. It took me 18 months to write. It's the longest piece of art I've ever spent time on, because it was very much like, okay, if you're going to try and say this, you've got to go about it. You're only going to get one opportunity. You're going to do something. There's probably been a lot more references, but off the top of my head, I can only think of 2 or 3 other artists that have done a homage to 10 Crack Commandments that were worthwhile, sort of thing. So I got Jesswar to do me a beat, like a real funky Aussie glitch hop kind of beat. You know, it's very, I love that Aussie glitch hop has its own sort of sound.
Yeah.
So Jesswar did that beat, and then so I just send it to Bo, and she's like, I remember sending the finished copy to her, and she's like, and I said, what do you reckon? Like all the things, like even consent is sexy, and all these sort of things that we want to touch on. She's like, baby, she's like, you nailed it. I'm like, what about this? She's like, no. I was like, oh, was this a bit too preachy? She's like, no, it's perfect. Like, da-da-da. Like, so having that person to be able to go, this is me being a precious artist. I don't think this is any good. And have someone go, no, it's good. Like, not like, I don't need someone to blow smoke up my ass. I just need to know if it's, and someone who believes in me.
An honest critique of
That's exactly right, yeah. My partner's always going to say it sounds great. My little brother's always going to say it sounds shit. Like, it's like this beautiful, like, so whereas Bo's in the industry, and she is a person that, I could just like send, hey, what about this? And she'll be like, I'm trying to do this track at the moment. I got into this rapper called Prof, who's from Minneapolis, and he's very much like, he's a bit of a buffhead, like I love it, and it's just really funny. So I'm trying to do a bit more of a comedy. So this EP is quite serious, and the next thing I'm writing is just real dumb. Like I'm doing a track with Angus, and it's just like, let's just be buffheads, like real dumb, but quite clever. But I've got this line, and I thought it was too far. I was like, oh, this is too far. Like, but it's hilarious. Like it's so funny if you're in the right mindset for it. Anyway, so I asked Bo about it, and she's like, nah. And that's what she wrote back, no. And I'm like, cool, done. That idea's in the bin. Sweet. Yeah. Next, I was thinking about changing this anyway. She's like, yep, that works better. Like, I was like, so having that person just to quickly bounce off has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Really, really necessary. So so she'll just end up getting the first sort of half-baked idea or the first sort of version that I've done with Johnny, and she'll be like, yep, sweet, or like this bit, don't like this bit. And it's just very direct, very quick. I try not to take up too much of her time. And then, so highly recommend mentorship. Or I was very anti, especially music. I was like, I don't need a coach. Like, I don't need
I've been coached my whole life.
I don't need a club. Like, I don't need a club or a coach. Like, this is music. It's just art. It's just whatever. But no, it's like having someone to learn off, have some bounce ideas off. Like, it's invaluable.
Absolute essential, man. Yeah. So, I guess the only thing I didn't talk about before, I kind of like. I think we're sort of wrapping this up pretty soon, but beatboxing, we haven't even talked about the fact that you actually have that in your arsenal of skills.
I won a beatbox battle back in the day, and spent a lot of time learning to beatbox. Back my car stereo fucked out when I was at uni in Canberra, and I had silence. And so I just, me and my mates just learned to beatbox and just let it do a few things. So, and it's always been, I always say that, I've always said this to when I start talking with new rappers, like kids who are just starting out, they're like, what piece of advice? I'm like, learn to beatbox. Because if no one can beatbox in your crew, no one can rap. But there's one person that can beatbox, the 5 dudes can rap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's an instrument in itself. You learn rhythm, you learn all these, and then you sort of can create your own different sounds and stuff. And then it's become my almost like a dirty little secret. Like I'll do it around job sites, and dudes will be like, "The hell was that?" what's that? I'm like, oh, sorry.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, I'm like, especially if I find a room that's really boomy and got mad reverb, I'll be like, oh, listen to that. Like the huge snare, wow, But yeah, so it's just my favourite little thing. And so yeah, so I muck around with a RC505, just a loop station. But again, once I got into sort of the music production side of it, I realised just how much there is to learn. And I've done that with a few things. I've gone, oh, this is a great idea. And then I get there and go, feel like I'm sitting at the bottom of the well, like, where I want to be is up there.
Yeah.
And so I've just tended to stick to what I prefer. So I just stick to writing. Like I did dabble in music production, and then once I started sort of putting songs together, I'd listen to an actual song and be like, how do I get from there to there? Like I have no idea. Like, and I don't.
It's multi-layered.
Yeah, and I don't have the time, nor the equipment, nor the money to spend on learning it.
Yeah.
And again, take my hat off to the people that have, because I've dipped my toe in and got so confused. So the dudes that do it like yourself, that are making and releasing stuff, I'm like,
I mean, I've only released one track, so don't.
But you still know what you're doing. You know your way around Ableton. Like
I do. Like I do. I mean, I had to do that out of necessity.
Yep.
I feel like for me, one of the most difficult things is I've been DJing for 12 years. Both in Australia and in a couple of different countries. Well, really mainly the other one's my home country. But I switched from psytrance to, say, techno and bass music. And the moment I did that, I alienated myself.
Yeah, right.
And so I've...
the scene or?
Well, not entirely. I still work with, like, in the psytrance scene. Like, obviously, everyone goes to me for the second stage or the chill out acts and stuff. But I noticed that the people who were doing better were the ones who had, releases under their belt.
Yep.
But then the same sort of realization that you had, like under the well kind of thing, I experienced that. And from time to time, I still, I'm no Opio, I'm no Grouch, that's for sure. Got a long way. But the realization that I had was, it's like you said, to be sort of the master of your craft, you just have to be doing it for so long, and it's like, do you have the time to do it?
Yeah, or the dedication.
The dedication.
And I think you have to be quite frank about yourself. Like I've got a lot of friends who call themselves producers, and I feel like kind of going, are you really though? Like you've got a couple of whips on SoundCloud that doesn't really. I think before. There's that idea of having an identity, of calling yourself a producer, is like you
got to put something out.
Yeah, it's like when I was first studying writing and I started calling myself a writer. I was like, am I? And then I was like, no, I want to do enough writing so that I can turn around to someone and say, I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I'm a swimmer, I'm an athlete. Like I've got these titles, but I think with music, a lot of people think it's like it's a lot easier than it is, and those people tend to think more highly of themselves than perhaps they should when it comes to their music production. And it's sort of, and then you meet the guys who are the ones slaying it, and they are it's just another thing that they do. It's not their,
It's about a leap of faith, I think.
Yeah, totally. And they back themselves and they finish the project. There's what this saying is, there's gunners and there's gunners and there's doers. There's people who are always gonna do something. I'm gonna. Or just like I will. Sorry, gunners are willers. Like, and I will do.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do. It's like that. And when someone first said that to me, I literally changed my my attitude. Not my attitude, just the way I said things. I would never. If we were going to do a project, it wasn't. So we should. When are we going to get together? When will we get together? Just changing that little phrase is really empowering, I think.
Yeah. Instead, you're going, hey, Wednesday?
Yeah, that's it. Lock it in. Cool, let's do it. And now what's funny is that I've taken on this attitude. And this is a Bo's had a lot to do with this as well.
That's why I was like, that's why I mentioned it.
Is that I get the shits now with people that waste my time. I'm like, are we doing this or not? Like, dude, like, come on. And a few times I've asked Facebook. I'm quite lucky in my large Facebook audience that I have. I tend to use Facebook instead of Google now. Like, hey, what about this? And it'll get 12 different opinions on something instead of asking Google, which is just all ads.
Yeah.
And so when I asked a few times, I've gone, hey, anyone got the beat? Send me a beat. The amount of times I'll get 5 or 6 that are just like, it's just a bass line, a drum, and then a description of what the track's going to be. I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. Like, it's not that. So send it to me when it is that. If you want to work with me, I'm not here to. I don't have enough time really now.
Yeah.
Especially with the
Kid on the way.
Kid on the way, little spud.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, super excited. I'm going to be coming to people like you for mad advice and ringing you at 3 hours tonight. What do I do?
I don't know about me being a business. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think it's about dedicating the time, and then when you're sitting down and doing it, sitting in a studio. Can't see this, but your studio, it's here. We're here to do a job. It's like get in, get it done, get out. Don't sit around for X amount of time, because then you're going to lose that motivation of, all right, sweet, we're here to do something.
Yeah. I'm one of those people. I'm definitely one of those. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
But I've slowly been transitioning into. I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
A big part of it is actually this studio.
Yep.
It is like
great space, dude. Like, I'm really impressed. Like, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Impressed from not only a carpenter's perspective, but from a person who's been in rooms like this a lot.
It is kind of like when I realized, in order for me to take my music production seriously, you do need a bit. You do as a producer, you need the space.
You do.
You do need acoustic treatment and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's you backing yourself. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important. I've done that. I do that with taking singing lessons. I don't really want to be belting out Guy Sebastian tunes or singing, but learning that process was incredible for my voice. Like, Johnny was doing sound at a festival once, and I was up next, and I was warming up, and he just looked at me and gone, "Are you warming up?" I'm like, "I'm warming up." Like, look at me being all professional. Sometimes I couldn't figure out why. Halfway through my set, I'd finally feel like I was getting off. Now I feel good. It's like, it's because you've just warmed.
Your voice isn't cracking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's taken 10 minutes to warm up, you muppet. Like.
Man, it's so funny. I never knew anything about any of that until like a friend of mine was like, "Hey, there's this opera singer that used to be in Cats." Yep. He's like, he just really wants me to start rapping because he's like, he heard me do a thing, and I was like, I don't know, man. I just do it for fun. I just like to imitate people, and it's one of those extra things that I can do. I really just want to do. But he was like, took me there, and he showed me, you got to blow bubbles.
The trills.
But it's just obviously listening to you talk about all this stuff is always, for me, it's a privilege to be able to, to just hear people going, no, if you really want to up the ante and sort of upgrade yourself and your skill set, you've got to study. You do. It's worth going to a linguist or, all that kind of.
I mean, trial and error is only ever going to get you so far, but it might get you to the same point, but one way is a lot quicker. Learning off people that have already done it before. It's just, okay, that's why this works. Oh, that makes sense. It's like there are methods that are tried and true. And it's worth, investing in yourself, I think. Yeah.
Look, I think it's like that's pretty much one of the main things that interested me in our initial conversation is how much, you've essentially been training and training and training. And you're always going to be training.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just my mindset. I don't think anything's going to change. It's even like when I was doing my Cert 2 in carpentry, my pre-apprenticeship in carpentry. All the other kids. So I sort of realized trades are very different to the corporate world. Like I'm hanging out with the badass kids that didn't want to go to school, and they're all and the teachers stop, and we've got like half an hour. And he's like, kind of amuse yourself, sort of thing. And so these kids are just running around doing dumb shit, and I just sat there using my handsaw to cut miters. You know what I mean? I'm like, well. Let's just do it. It's just training. And now when I did refit on the bus, I did cut all these miters, and I showed my stepdad who's a tradie, and he's just like, "You cut that with the hand?" So I'm like, Like I was just so stoked to show these miter cuts that I've done. Totally insignificant in the whole sort of outfit, but instead of doing it with a machine, I just did it with a bit more hand. So that's my sort of mentality to most things. When I find something that interests me,
how much you want it.
Yeah, totally.
Well, my man, you deserve it.
Thank you very much.
I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see the esoteric, the 10
Duff Commandments. That'll be out in a couple of weeks. Don't you worry.
I've seen a little tiny snippet of it, which credit to Gillo, the cinematics.
Oh man, that dude. I mean, he's been taking photos of me for like. I've got a few profile pics of mine from like 2010. Of Jurassic Melbourne, like and we just had this like, oh sweet, like he's just been so it's like one of those dudes you've known but have been in my not in my inner circle, but my outer circle for years.
Close proximity.
Yeah, totally.
Man, I can't wait to get him on board. And,
that'll be fun.
So, my man, before we sort of, is there anything you want to plug in before we, is there one you want to mention, hype up something? The floor is yours.
No, so Viper, film clip for Viper's out. The tune is available to buy and stream from June 23rd. There'll be a few advanced copies, so DJs, get at me if you want an advanced copy for a promo mix or something. Yeah. Well, what I'm actually doing, the label, we're going to see how the stats on the video go, and the label wants me to do retakes and do like different names at the drop. So instead of like UTS, it'd be like liquid, come and strike like a viper. So we might get onto that. I'll see how much time and effort I've got. And then other than that, my EP Illiterate is coming out. I'm just going to do it all indie. I decided to just do it by myself. 10 of Commandments is the lead single. That film clip will be out in probably 3 weeks or so. And then, 2 weeks after that, the EP will drop. So, Bandcamp, dyslexic.bandcamp or soundcloud.com dyslexic. Is where you can find me. Or Facebook. That's my main thing is Facebook.
Avenue, yeah.
I like a rant.
Well, my man, thank you for...
thanks for having me, dude. It's been awesome.
Dude.
Cheers, man.
You're
much appreciated.
You're a champ, and both on the bike and
on the bike, on the mic.
On the bike and on the mic, yeah. So thanks for listening, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Much love.
Dyslexic. Over and out.